Ciao a tutti e bentornati a un nuovo episodio dello S2M Podcast. Io sono Luca e volevo solo ricordarvi molto velocemente che questo è un estratto di una conversazione con Hans Emil, che quindi già altri episodi precedenti sono usciti, quindi vi consiglio, se non l'avete ancora fatto, di dare un'occhiata agli altri video che trovate sul canale. Detto ciò, spero che il podcast sia di vostro gradimento e vi auguro una buona visione.
But I can walk you through my program if you want. So I train to 4 to 5 days a week. I had an accident in May when I was this year, but short history of my life. When I was 13 years old, when I played football, I got my patella dislocated. So my kneecap is really instable. So when I'm pushing my quads to get more gains, the instability occurs a bit more often. Okay, so I have to be really move slowly with my progress, and sometimes I want a bit more than I should. But in terms of the volume, it's not crazy, but because of this problem with my kneecap, it's a bit like a long-term issue with like putting size on the quads, because I have to be a bit cautious. So, but in May, I actually built quite a good of strength and muscle with my quads. And then I did this one-legged leg extension with like 50 kilos, which was really good actually for me to pull that off. But first set I did 12 reps, and then I'm gonna go on to the next set, the second set. I did 8 reps, 9 reps, and boom, and then the kneecap dislocated, so it get a bit swollen, and I get a little setback with my legs training. So fast forward to now. Training the posterior chain, like I train Romanian deadlift. I do some sumo deadlift, and all these exercises with less knee flexion, totally pain free. Okay, totally pain free. Most of my quads exercises are getting better, so not that much of a pain anymore. But it is fair avoidance behavior. You're always a bit too cautious, and you get these irrational thoughts, and you're catastrophizing about your own body and your ability to function. We call it self-efficacy. Have you heard about that? Self-efficacy? Efficacy, I think it's called. Yeah. No, it's your belief in yourself in your own body. So in terms of, for instance, long-term pain, I like to call it long-term pain, and a lasting pain, instead of chronic pain, because chronic pain is really nocebo drive with that sound. So when I talk with people with pain, I always say, okay, lasting pain or long-term pain is a bit better than this chronic thing, because then you will never get rid of it, but you can most of it. So I work around this problem now. So the second day I do some isometrics for the quad tendon, and then gradually load management for my quads training. So now I focus on really one-legged stuff, just to be sure that I'm putting similar kind of pressure on each foot and not leaning towards too much of the other side, to build the same capacity of both my legs. So like my direct work on the legs now is a bit like, how rehab is. It's not the most fun, but it's important. So I think we should rather dive into the other stuff, but that's much more funny to talk about. But one thing, actually, I did this measurement of my calf for I think about 3 years ago.
I want to hear this.
I probably sent you this video. I haven't time when my little sister is measuring my calf, and she's like, "Oh, it's not more." So she's measuring, I think it was 37.5 centimeters. And this year I have measured my calf again, and it's 39.5. So I made this huge 2 centimeter of development of the calves. And the one thing that has worked for me, not necessarily increasing the training volume, but my passive stretch, I've gone from 2 seconds to 5 seconds. And that are really just, it's horrible, it's painful, but the growth, is evident that is working for me. So I think when it comes to like calf training, because of the eccentric phase of the calf races is so short, it's no you could emphasize, but not the most important phase to emphasize on calves. Is more important to emphasize the passive stretch, because you can get more of the passive stretch than the eccentric phase. Do you follow me on that one?
Yeah, I think I've heard. Have you? I know Elia always listens to Stronger by Science podcasts, and I think one of the last episodes, I was maybe 4 or 5 episodes ago, they were
Okay.
talking about the idea that there's been a study where they compare, like, they measured the amount of hypertrophy that untrained folks got from like an hour stretch on their calves at something around RP 6 or 7 or 8. I don't remember. But basically, they had a lot of hypertrophy that sometimes they don't even register um in normal training studies. So when you train calves with regular concentric and dynamic movements, so they were suggesting that maybe trying to stretch your calves could get you even better results than just training them for some reason, and not just stretching them under tension for 5-6 seconds on the eccentric during when you train them, but actually just stretching them when you're at home. If you have any way to stretch them, it might get you better results, just because they don't seem to respond very well to training, but they seem to respond very well to stretch mediated hypertrophy. But I'm not sure if that's, but many people have experienced that. I think, like, training the calves and emphasizing the stretching position, they got pretty good results. So I think that might be something to consider. The only problem is that it takes away a lot of time, as I think if you're training the calves with 5 seconds hold in the stretch position, I think one set takes you maybe 2 minutes, 1 minute, something like that. It lasts
6 to 8 reps. So
8 reps. Yeah, if it's 8 reps, it's not so long. But I remember when during COVID, idea program for me, was it doc rep?
Yeah,
dog rep. Don't Trudell.
Yeah, they took me I think 5 minutes to complete, because there were 20 reps or something like that, and it was so painful.
Yeah.
But it might work.
I think one must find a balance there with the rep range. So I think like 6 to 8 reps heavy with the loaded stretch could be a good way to train. I think when people argue about the calves, should it be all up in the toes or whatever, I think that you probably should have some sets that you put the way all over the tops to get fully contracted, shortened stimuli. But I think some partials could be really beneficial for calves, because you're actually overloading the stretch position. You can push your calves a lot harder when you not have to go all the way on the toes. Doesn't mean that you have to do like this, but just the last part, you're not getting all on the toe, but you're getting a really good contraction. And with heavy weights. So I think the deal with this discussion with is partials wrap beneficial or not. I think it probably could be beneficial, and therefore, like, this partial wrap kind of philosophy has always been through the bodybuilding society, and with the shortened position emphasis, and it's kind of the same concept. You're just overloading one part of the movement, but it's not. Do you catch my drift there?
Yeah.
Yes. So just about, emphasizing on calf partials, you can really get a really good stimuli because you overloaded the stretch position, and some intraset stretching as well. So training the calves is a lot of stretch. So I've not read the whole article with Stronger by Science, but in terms of the advice I've been given, people who have experienced good growth of calves and my line of practice and some research, a passive stretch probably would be good.
Yeah.
And that's because of, the Achilles tendon is really good to store elastic energy. So you always see this tiny guy who, blasting the 200 kilos calf raise like nothing, and there are no calves. And that's because this Achilles tendon is so efficient to store this this elastic energy, and that's the reason why people can jump high and long and run. Better running economy with this helping the contraction with this elastic energy. So yes. Have you any thoughts about calf training? Probably supersetting with tib races. Tib races earlier.
Yeah,
You've done some tib races.
I always do them like that. Yeah, I always
Yes.
do calf raises and then partials, and then I superset them with reverse calf raises again with partials as well. To be honest, I've always
you get the stretch, when you're doing the tib race. Yeah.
It's even more painful, but it's effective. To be honest, I've always noticed good gains using this method, like with not as much with interset stretching, but with intraset stretching, meaning like giving myself as much time as possible spent in the lengthened position, like anywhere between 2 to 5 seconds as well. I've always noticed gains when doing that. It wasn't like I feel like I am predisposed to have above average calf genetics, but with this method I've always noticed like a performance increase, and it's fairly linear. The more time I spend in that position, or the more I focus on, and the less I focus on the load, the more my calf grow. So
that's an interesting perspective also, because think about this. You have different exercises with different resistance profiles. So you have some exercises which have like a kind of too low of load on the lengthened position, but by, for instance, increasing the passive tension, you also increase like the load in stretch position. For instance, when you doing the pull-ups and doing the stretch and holding this position, because of gravity, you're like pulling down, so you get this great stretch on your lats or teres major or whatever. So you will notice that if you have a longer hold in the pull-ups, for instance, the bottom gets a lot tougher for each rep. So there will be a contribution to the training stimuli by adding this passive tension and the stretch, as I say, with the intraset stretching. So if you're like your training philosophy is minimal, for instance, and you like to have fewer exercises, doing this intraset stretching could be really beneficial, because maybe you are putting a bit more load in a position that you are not trained that training session. Does that make sense? Yes. So should I have continue with my program?
Yeah.
Yes. I know how much time we have.
Well, you have
long as podcast.
Yeah, indeed. But you said before that you have 4 single frequency days, meaning that you only train a muscle group like once per week. But do you train your pull-ups more than once, or is it only on the back day?
Yes, because now my main focus now is to develop the capacity of the primary muscles in my main lift. Okay, so by increasing the size, I also increase the force the force potential. I don't remember correctly how
So
much. Quadrat centimeter of muscle. You increase by X Newton meters in force development. So like a bigger muscle, more force potential.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, I can send you a study. I think it was a study on power lifters, I think. So this association with we have all these high level power lifters, and the best of them always have a bit more muscle mass. So there's a correlation with muscle mass and strength.
Yeah.
This is a thing that I've noticed myself, that like maximal strength, I'm not that primed to train that frequent. I get a bit taxed when I focus on strength, only strength training focus with the maximum strength development. So I've noticed that it's a bit more beneficial long term for me to focus on getting bigger, because then I'm getting stronger as well and not as taxed. Does that make sense? Because some people doing a lot of strength work and get a lot of muscle gains, but I'm a bit other way around. I focus on getting bigger, and then I have to have this phase where I prime myself to lift heavy, of course, because strength is a specific skill. We have to work with relevant intensity of a percentage of the 1 RM, of course. But if I focus too long on lifting heavy, my system really get fried, and especially with the pull-ups, because probably in terms of natural guys, I'm at the higher level. I'm probably more advanced, more elite level in strength. So my pull-ups max is 90 kilos, and total weight is 182. So that's pretty good for a 192 centimeter guy. And so what I've done now is I decrease my frequency in the lift, because the focus now is not getting more efficient with the pull-ups. And technically, my focus now is building capacity, which will lead to performance enhancement when I increase the frequency and focus on maximal strength development. So I want to build like the motor and get big. Everyone wants to have bigger arms, but I feel that I have some potential in my back, which I'm not. I cannot deliver it. I feel it, but it restricted because of my arm strength. Because where the where it's heaviest in the lift, and by focusing on bicep strength, I can get a bit more like speed towards the sticking point. And because if you come with too slow of a speed to the sticking point, the speed is reduced and you will not get lockup. But if I could drive from the bottom with more forcefully and stronger with higher speed, it's more likely that I will lock off the weight. So I see when I'm doing partial, for instance, for pull-ups and chin-ups, I can lift a lot of weights, and that's actually a training tips itself, because we have this discussion. Okay, should you have like the shoulders to the bar, or is it enough to do to the chin? Well, this thing is, when you doing all the way up to the shoulders, you will get in a fully shortened position, but you will potentially could load the length and the mid position tougher if you're just going to the chin. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah. So by doing partials, you will could in some sense get more growth, because you're overly loading the stretch and mid positioning of the lift. So therefore, when people ask me, okay, should I have a stop with the rows or not? Well, if you do a row with a stop, you're matching the shortened position. Then you probably, even if it's bar or even it's cable, you probably underload the earlier phase of the movement. So there's a line of thought that you could do partials and overload a specific part of that muscle length, whatever called. And therefore also as an intensity technique in terms of muscle gains, you can, okay, let's say you can start with, for instance, a weight that you can touch with your chest, not hold, but you can touch it slightly, a bit like a touch and go, and then you can crank out some extra reps in partials to really push the muscle to muscle failure, let's call it that, because no one gets to real muscle failure, but you can get closer to it by practice. So that will be like an intensity technique. So when I look at my my back program now,
so
first,
I suppose you're prioritizing biceps now. Basically, you're prioritizing. You're focusing on mass gains on your back and your biceps, right?
Yes, perfectly summed up.
Have you ever tried like putting biceps first in the workout, or you rather push it back toward the end?
In terms of how I prioritize it now, the first day of the week, straight up shoulder and arm day.
Okay.
Because I can push my biceps harder with a direct day. Okay. Because what I've noticed when I have like, okay, we're done back and then we're gonna do biceps, I'm a bit too fatigued that session to get relevant like stimuli to my biceps. I think I see a lot of performance drop when I do biceps after back. But sometimes people say, okay, by doing these compounds like bench press and pull-ups, it's all you need to build arms. Sometimes, yeah, probably, but not for me. I have, long guy, long range of motion, and I have to have this direct day to develop my arms for performance enhancement in my pull-ups. So because so now I really like experienced this. I have made some progress with my training, with progress, and there have been a lot of months now which I have a bit stalled in my progress with my pull-ups. So I really have to rethink things. So by having these direct days, I really feel like this mid position of my lift is better, and that's because of my bicep strength. And then I also see strength gains in most of my back training. Okay. So by increasing my bicep strength, I also get the better gains at my back. So a really productive phase, I would say. So my first day is I do shoulder and arms. I do a bit low volume but high intensity. So this is how I do. I do a 60 grades shoulder press, but in machine. So my line of thought there is that I want to have less accumulated fatigue during the week. So I dump down the motor requirement, like let's say the motor skill component in each exercise, make it easier, machine based, so I can get a really direct stimuli, but managing fatigue. Okay, so I do the shoulder press 60 degrees. Then I do unilateral triceps extension. I do 3 sets of lateral raises with chest support with a bit incline. So I get a bit fuller shortened position. But I go heavy on them because it's funny. So I don't worry that I have totally straight elbow, but I have a slightly bent. I went from like 15 kilos to 7.5 kilos. Then I bet a bit more. I'm like, fuck it, this is fun. I will perfect this skill over time. So be haters on Instagram. I don't care. Because the response in shoulder is good now. But I see that, okay, a bit of technique. Okay, it's fine. It's a new like weight increase. It's fine. So now I'm gonna stick at it. This 7.5 kilos weight, and really like perfecting the movement. So my main goal is to have like 15 reps with a bit more extended elbow. So I also have this performance goals, better movement, so that the training gets really increasing my enjoyment, because I'm not only thinking about this 100 kilos of chin-ups goal. I'm thinking about the process. I can do this a little bit better and increase my enjoyment with training. So on my next exercise, because I did a short position ladder race, I do incline ladder race to overload the mid-range position. I really like that one. And no performance drop, because I had a shortened position exercise
earlier on.
before.
Yeah.
Yes. So I can really push hard on that second exercise as well. But if I did the other way around, I would see a noticeable performance drop, because then I overload this position, so I don't get with that much of a speed from the bottom, and then I have to go down on the weights on the shortened position.
Yeah.
Okay. The next exercise is spider curls. So a bit short position, little eccentric damage. Feels good. Is good with the pump, And then I do this three sets of Bayesian curl, biceps curl, unilateral, whatever you call it. But I get a bit more stretch position with the biceps.
Yeah. Are you doing them with the trunk straight, or are you flexing the trunk as well?
A bit. Like a bit tilted forward because of the balance, because it's going heavy. I think you're more stable when you incline your body.
It's for ego lifting reasons. I got your point.
Yeah, of course it is.
Keep
It's
going.
all about how much you weight you're lifting. I know. You took me there. It's all about the balance, okay? Because if you're angling too much, it will be an ordinary biceps curl. So you have to think about the execution of what you want to actually do. You want to have a bit more lengthened bicep position, and then you have to be a bit focus on how you're angling your body. So I see why you asked that question, because it's relevant because of the load and the angle of the cable, of course.
Yeah.
Then I do the tricep kickback. Not with what though? And
we like this one.
not with dumbbell, with cable.
The cable, yeah.
Yes. The triceps, it extends elbow, but also a bit the retroflexion. So I get a really crazy like contraction in that part, and it's not that of a demanding exercise. So this is also my line of thought. I want to increase my training volume on my triceps, but I also want to manage the load I have on my joint. Okay, so therefore I adjust up the volume on the triceps by adding a bit shortened position triceps to spare my elbow joint. Make sense?
Yeah.
So you have this exercise which everybody hates, and this exercise sucks. But when I do my line of reasoning, it has a function, because now I have increased my training volume. I see notable effect of other tricep exercises. So the sum of all parts leads to performance, and that which is in the end important for me. Okay, so I notice on my bench press, I always been good from the bottom, but because of my long arms and limbs, the lockout, which is a problem now. But I see now my lockout a lot better, and I see this overall development of the triceps gaining some serious results.
I got it.
So not a good bencher by far, but I notice my gains, and that is what is important. 10 minutes, okay, I can do this.
Can I ask you one more question, actually?
Yes. Thank you.
If you were to switch and add more volume, like with the overhead movement, you'd have more issues to your elbow rather than having more volume towards your shortened exercises, right?
That's the thing, because I can feel a bit like, when you're doing this movement, there is like the greatest distance of the joint,
Yeah.
and there with this makes the pain in the elbow.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
now I'm doing this 15-20 reps zone, which is a bit lighter and good for me, but I feel a bit achy in the joint, but I push myself because pain could be a bit illogical, unlogical sometimes.
Yeah,
When you fall down the stairs, pain is quite logical. You have a trauma, and that makes sense. But if you have a bit long-term pain, the pain could come and go, depending on many variables. So it's all about sensitivity, and it's not necessarily about any injury of the structure or anything dangerous. But then again, it should be not that sensitive that you cannot do the movement. So what I have seen, if I increase a bit more volume on the lengthened position, my elbows get a bit more flared up. But
Yeah.
if I instead increase the volume with a bit kickback, shorten the position, whatever you call it, then it's more tolerable. So I have like a success in that sense. I've increased the volume on the triceps in terms of work, and I've noticed gains and not made the elbow worse. So that's okay. Then I will stick to my plan, even if the exercise is not perfect. But it's all about knowing the strength and the weakness of the exercise.
Got it.
So that's
So-
how I line of reasoning. Yeah.
Even if you had a client with the same issue, you wouldn't completely cancel the exercise, but you would find like a threshold where the volume of the lengthened bias is still in, and then you would maybe switch more volume towards the shortened or mid-range.
For example.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. The thing is, when doing triceps with max load in the mid position, that's probably where it's occurring most pressure at the joint also, because you can, the most strong position is the mid position.
Yeah.
I mean, with the lengthening of the sarcomeres and so on. So the amount of load you can pull or push in that position are probably at its highest.
Higher,
So
yeah.
probably maybe more like mid position emphasis could be more triggering. But then again, every case is unique in its own way. So in general terms, because I don't want to say that, oh, this exercise, don't do it. This is a case specific thing. Okay, so really emphasize that. But you can have like this reasoning map. Yeah, I think what it's called. Okay, so okay, does the exercise hurt? Yes. Okay, do the same exercise and do it with a bit less load. Does it still hurt? No. Okay, stay there. Okay, does it still hurt? Yes. Okay, decrease the load a bit further. Does it still hurt? No. Tolerable? Okay, stay there. Because what you have achieved now is to self-efficacy. Okay, if you just quit exercising because it hurts, you associate it with something dangerous. Oh, I can't do this exercise because it's dangerous. And every time you expose you for that exercise, it could really increase the sensitivity when you're doing that exercise. So you don't build any capacity by excluding a movement. Okay, so you have to. It's really important when it comes to like fear avoidance and this kind of catastrophing with your own body, to expose yourself for movement that has been hurting earlier.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
I do
So
the same
like,
with clients.
Yeah.
I do the
Yes.
same with clients. I don't completely cancel like a movement, even if it hurts. I actually try to find a very similar variation, and then I try to put the initial movement, the one that hurt in the beginning, back in.
Which is interesting, and sometimes it's all about how the person like grasp the context. Okay, so for instance, you can have the same movement like occurring here with the stretch on the triceps and the training effect, but you can put it in other context. For instance, you are standing doing it, that hurts, then you flip it and you do it lying, and then it doesn't hurt. So you have changed the context, but the movement is the same. Okay, and then people like feel pain relief. Okay, so the body is really like fascinating because they also associate with these kind of movements with pain. Okay, so by just changing the context could be really beneficial for some exercise. For instance, when I have clients with lower back issues, for instance, let's say, okay, they had an issue when they're doing the deadlift. Okay, normal case, nothing dangerous, but normal back pain. And instead of like doing the exercise right ahead, you could be like, you put some fun in it. Okay, you for instance, you have this like medicine ball. Okay, hey, do this type of game. Hey, catch this, or bring me the ball. And then I do this flexion of kind of deadlift movement with a rounded back, and I do it and no pain, because like the context of the situation is different, but the movement is kind of the same, and you actually expose yourself with more flexion in that movement. So it's really interesting when you're working with people, how you can like change the context and work with the emotional states, and then the outcome could be also different. Okay,
I will tell you an anecdote on this. You know that in 2021 I hurt my lower back. I had 2 protrusions. I don't know if it's the same term in English. However, I was feeling pain strictly in the gym whilst I was trying maybe like an RDL or other similar movements. However, while I was at work, like moving loads, moving stuff, I wasn't even thinking about my back. I was just thinking about doing my job, but the movements of spine flexion was similar or even enhanced. However, I wasn't feeling any pain, or the pain was strictly reduced, just because I was thinking about doing my job and not thinking about, hey, I should activate my my lats to stabilize the spine and all. Yeah, it's the same.
Really good anecdote, and therefore the art of coaching is very interesting, because there are some clients you should probably deliver more technical cues to, but then again there are some clients, especially with pain, maybe should give less technical cues to, because of that don't like overemphasis all have to be in this perfect state of my back to be able to lift, because then you make like rigid thinking, you're worrying, or I have to do this technique, if it's not it's going to happen something bad. Okay, so I think this part is it is good, a good anecdote, and changing the context. You're doing the same movement and not hurting, but when you go to the movement that has been hurting, then suddenly you like increasing the sensitivity. You adjusting the volume, adjusting the volume up. So you typical when you like let's say you change tires on your car, and not suddenly, oh, my back. And the next time you're going to change the tires on the back, you're like moving like a robot. Like, oh no, I remember this situation when I changed my tires for my daddy, and then you work like a robot, and then that was happening. You were like increasing the sensation and sensitivity, because you remember this episode, and you went down this path, So pain is a mysterious, fascinating thing, I think. So yeah, I think it was really a pleasure to talk with you guys. Actually, never done a podcast before, but I really enjoyed podcasts. You probably seen on my face that I really enjoyed this. So if you want to have me as a guest another time, I will find time, and we will talk about a lot of topics with training, nutrition, and yes, whatever. I really enjoyed this podcast, I have to say, and I hope I lived up to the expectation of the myth of the Norwegian coach.
Well, to be honest, man, yeah, if you have anything about like the IOPN that really gave you some enthusiasm or that you want to talk about, I would be glad to have you on back again, or maybe to talk about. We can collect some questions from a Q&A maybe, and have like a more strict podcast, because this one was a nice introduction. I feel like for people that don't know you, especially, will get to know you and your general thoughts. I liked especially your convo about pain, about dealing with like hypersensitivity, which was fun, and also I felt it deeply because I've been through this stuff I think 3 times already, so completely get your point. And I also liked your analogy with chronic pain and long-term pain, which I will completely steal from you and use it with my clients as well, because it's a good one. Even psychologically, like telling someone that has long-term pain rather than chronic pain is a lot more like, I know it's a simple switch, and maybe it doesn't mean a lot, but for the client, like hearing long-term pain for once, I feel like mentally could be refreshing.
Yeah, I think so. Thank you for the feedback. So
no worries. Cool. Cosa ne pensi? Va meglio? Perché sorridi?
Because Hans is staring at us, like pretending he's understanding what we're
he's
saying.
Understanding everything.
Everything now.
No, I mean,